Hi, this is Murray from Second Time Tech, and today I'm going to be going over what I've been doing over the last two videos, and that is the overclocking and the memory timings that I'm doing on my Ryzen 7 1700 system that I'm making for my studio. And the first thing that I wanted to go over again is the fact that I was able to overclock the CPU to 3.8 gigahertz, and that was at 1.39 volts. Now, I know that it can go higher than that, so when I get my new motherboard, I'm going to try to go a little higher because this motherboard doesn't seem to let me do anything higher than that. And my Master Liquid cooler there, the 120, it won't. I have not seen the CPU go over 67 degrees, which is really, really good. And when you have thermal throttling, that's whenever you can't get the overclock to go any higher. So what you're supposed to do is cool the CPU more. Well, I don't even have it high, and I still can't seem to get the CPU over 3.8 gigahertz, which makes me wonder if maybe something's not right with the motherboard not allowing it, or maybe it might be the cooling that's not allowing it. But I don't understand why the cooling wouldn't, because the heat is so low. Most of the time it's only in the 40s, like, and that's whenever I'm working it. Like it's just whenever I'm stressing it, it goes up into the 60s, and that was only like I think one time or two times that it went up into the 60s. So so like I say, I'm going to try something a little different on that. Now, the memory, my Corsair Vengeance LPX 3600 megahertz, that's a long name, with a timing of 18, 19, 19, 39. In my last video, I said that the XMP profile on it would only allow it to go to 3200 megahertz, and that's what's running right now still. And I was going to tighten up the timings so I'd get better bandwidth, and then that actually makes your CPU run faster also. So sometimes it's better to have higher bandwidth with tighter timings than it is to have more frequency. So that's what I've been playing with, is the timings, and I still haven't been able to get it above the 16, 17, 17, 39. I can't get that 39 to go any lower. Every time I did it, it would, after either a few minutes or after even an hour, sometimes I would get an error on that mem test. So I just left it, and I ran the mem test overnight, and it went to 1,687%, and I had 0 errors, and that's at 1.5 volts. And so that's where I left it at, because I knew that was a good one. Anything over 1,000 means that it's really good, and this is like way over 1,000. So I'm going to be happy with that until I get that other motherboard, and then when I get the other motherboard, I'll try some more again, because the other motherboard might be better with this CPU. Because when you do memory, it has to do with the CPU and the memory sticks and the motherboard, because the motherboard has things in it that control the memory, and the CPU has actually the memory controller built into it. So if you get a CPU that has a good memory controller, then that means that you can take memory and tighten the timings quite a bit. If you get a CPU that doesn't have as well, then you can't do it. So it has nothing to do with the memory in that instance. And then in another instance, it might be the motherboard that's not acting quite right. And then in another instance, it could be the fact that the Samsung BDI memory chips that are on my memory kit may be the lower end ones that won't go to, Buildzoid. He said that he can get it to, I think it's 12, 12, 12, 30, or even lower than 30. And he says that's hardly a problem at all to do that. So he uses different motherboards than what I do. So, and he, well, of course, he's way better at it than I am, and he knows other things. I wrote down so many things that he talked about on the memory. And I could go over the numbers, and it just, like, for instance, I had it, when I first got it, I did 18, 18, 18, 36, and it ran for 115%. Then the next time I tried 15, 17, 17, 35, and that went for 127%. Then I tried 15, 16, 16, 34, and that wouldn't even boot. I had to reset the motherboard in order to get back in there and put all the information back in order to get that one, because it wouldn't even turn on. And then the next one I did was 16, 16, 16, 34. And then it ran for 132 before it got error. And then I went, and I think the last time I told you a good one that I got was 16, 16, 16, 30. And that ran for 409%. And then I got 3 errors. So that ran for almost 2 hours before I got any errors. But even one error is bad, so you can't even do that. And then I switched it to 16, 16, 16, 32, and then it only ran 33% and I got an error. So that was like minutes. And then the next time I put 16, 16, 16, 34, because I'm trying to increase the last one to make it stable. I got 208%, and then I got an error. So then I went 16, 16, 16, 39, and then I got another error. I didn't write down the time, that percentage, but I had another error. But when I did 16, 17, 17, 39, that's when it ran perfectly fine the whole time at 1.5 volts. Every one of those were at 1.5 volts. Now, there's a few other things that I was adjusting at the same time too. There's a thing called clock down, and I had that off. And then there's TRFC, which is the time that it refreshes the voltage on the memory in order for it to remember what was inside of it, because RAM won't hold things unless there's voltage there. So basically what it tries to do is not give it the voltage all the time. It just gives it like a little spike of voltage every so often. It's called a refresh rate, and that's what you're doing with that. So it was set to auto at 312, but if you lower that number, then that means that you're refreshing it less. And then if you refresh it less, then you don't have to wait for it to finish the refresh rate before it can go there and use it. So that means that whenever it's refreshing, you can't use the memory. But so the CPU has to sit there and wait until the refresh is done to be able to get the information out. Well, if it's not doing the refresh at the time it goes and asks, then it'll do it. So basically what you're trying to do is not do the refreshes as much. So I think I said that opposite the first time. If I did, excuse me. Now, whenever like I tried to do it again, I tried a whole bunch of different scenarios, and I went and I watched his video for a fourth time, and he talked about a few other things, and I tried those, and all it seemed to do was not allow my system to boot. So that's why I decided just to leave it at the 1617 1739 for now, because I know it's good, and when I get something better, then I'll do the I'll do more in the the timings on the memory, well, and the overclocking of the CPU, because I'll be changing two things. I'll be changing the motherboard to a different one, and I'll also be changing the cooler to a different one, which should give it more cooling. So I'm hoping that does it. If not, then there's a thing called a silicon lottery, and that would mean that I got pretty good with the CPU, but not great. But I did pretty good with the CPU, and with the memory, that I did okay, because that memory should go like way faster than what it's going right now, according to everything that I've read and everything that I've seen on videos and on websites and on forums. Well, that's a website anyway, and all that. So like I say, I'm just going to try again whenever I have something different, and hopefully next week sometime. Oh no, sorry. Probably in about a week and a half before I can talk about that stuff. So the next thing that I wanted to do was to actually tell you what I have inside here, or what I'm going to have inside here. I guess that's the better thing to do, I guess, is tell you what I'm going to have inside there. And that'll be the thing that I'll be overclocking whenever I have this. So the motherboard is going to be an Asus Crosshair Hero 6 X370 motherboard. And my CPU, of course, is going to be the one I got in there, the AMD Ryzen 7 1700, overclocked to 3.8 gigahertz. Hopefully, we'll get 3.9. That's just to be able to do it. I may not run it at that. I just want to see if I can get it. The next thing is the memory, which is the Corsair Vengeance LPX 3600 megahertz. Timings are 18, 19, 19, 36. And I did do a benchmark, and after I had just done the overclock on the CPU, and I didn't do anything to the memory, I checked it, and it's a program called Cinebench 15, and I got a score of 1635, which is decent. And then I overclocked the memory the best that I could, what I was telling you about, and you've probably heard it enough times, so I won't say it again. And like I say, I will say that it was 16, 17, 17, 39, just so that in case anybody forgot after I said it so many times. So it went from 1635 to 1698, and that was with the memory timings tightened. I didn't do anything to the CPU. I didn't make the memory any faster. I just tightened the timings. and increased the bandwidth of the memory, and it went, and that is 30, oh sorry, excuse me, that is 63 points higher, and that's a fair amount whenever it comes to the Cinebench. It means it's actually something that you can tell whenever you use the computer, that it is actually faster. So it's kind of nice that I was able at least to see that with it. And like I say, I'm really hoping to get something better than that. Anyway, back to the parts. I have MSI Radeon RX 580. I've only got the 4 gig, and it's the Armor, and it's an overclocked one, but just overclocked from the factory. I did not try to overclock it. And I have the NVMe Kingston KC1000 drive in there, that 480 gigabyte drive, which is my main drive on it, or my boot drive, or Windows drive, whatever you want to call it. And then I have a RecaData 250 gigabyte SSD. That's one SSD. And the other SSD is, I went and got my 256 gigabyte SanDisc drive that I was telling you about, that was in as a boot drive for the last 3 years, approximately. Could be a little more, could be a little less. And it's still 99% good. So I want to see how long it's going to last. So I got a different drive for that computer, and switched it over, and it's going to be in this one. And it's, like I said, 256 gigabyte. So I'm going to just check it and compare it with the other ones, because this is an older drive, so it's going to be slower. But it may be made with better NAND, because there's difference in NAND. And I'll talk about that another day, in case you guys don't know. You may have heard it already, but I learned a little bit about NAND too. The 3 terabyte hard drive that I'm going to get, it's on its way. I decided to get the Toshiba one over the Seagate, and the biggest reason why is because it went on sale. It went on sale for $99, which was way less than what it was before. So I bought it, and it's on its way. And I think it has longer longevity on that than the Seagate one, from what I've seen on the stats from businesses that use different types of drives. And it actually has quite a low failure rate. And the Seagate, up until about 2016 even, they had a high failure rate, and so did Western Digital. There's the Toshiba one was the second best drive, and the other one is just some letters. I can't remember what it was, but those drives are like really expensive, so I couldn't afford those ones. So I went with the, well, of course it went on sale too. So I went with the Toshiba one. Now the case is a Rosewill Cullinan, and it's a mid-tower case, and I like it. Actually, I like it quite a lot. It's quite nice. The airflow has to be pretty decent in it, because, like I said, the CPU hardly goes above the mid 40s in there, and that's when I'm using it to do a bunch of stuff. So I'm quite pleased with it. Now the power supply that's in there is a SeaSonic. It's a 620 watt. It's modular, and it's just the 80 plus bronze. I know a lot of people do the 80 plus gold, but I only have so much, so I got the bronze. That's still a better power supply than I've ever had before, in any system I've ever had before. So hey, maybe that's why I can't overclock it more. Maybe there's too much noise on it. I never thought of that. Yeah, I'll keep that in mind. I'll research that one, because I know if you have a lot of ripple or noise in your power that you're sending to your CPU, it will cause you not to be able to overclock as high. So that could be a thing. So that's another thing I'll look at that too. And the cooler, it's going to go from the Master Liquid 120 that's in there, and it's going to be a DeepCool Captain 240. Now they both have 2 fans on them, but one's got twice the size of the radiator, so I'm assuming it'll cool better. Makes sense. So I don't know if it'll actually lower the temperatures or keep them just the same longer. I'm not sure which it'll do, but we'll figure that out, and hopefully that one will work. I will put these in the show notes, and I will put links to US Amazon and the Canadian Amazon website for that. I probably won't do that till tomorrow, but I'll put the video up tonight, because I have to go through each one of them, so I may not be able to get that done today. Anyway, that's pretty much what I wanted to talk about today. I know there's a lot of numbers and stuff and whatnot, and there's just so much more to this than I ever thought there would be to overclocking or tightening the timings on the memory, that it will take me a while to do this. But whenever I do get it figured out, I will be able to explain it a lot better. And I still am just not there yet. But I'm trying. And I know I'll get it. It just may take me a little bit longer than what I thought it would be. Anyway, I do want to say that if you liked the video, then hit the like, and if you dislike the video, hit the thumbs down. Subscribe, please, and you can get more of my videos, of course, if you like the content. I want you to all have a wonderful day. And I also want to say thank you very much for watching and listening.